I never thought I'd be the type to come home and find my wife's bags packed on the porch, her face a mask of guilt and defiance. It's not like we'd been perfect, but I didn't see this coming, not at her sister's funeral of all times. That day I was already numb, watching my grandfather's casket get lowered into the ground. The rain was soft, almost a gentle protest against death, but the air inside me felt thick enough to choke on. That's when I saw her slip away. She disappeared from the gathering, slipping out of the crowd with a strange sort of urgency, like she was running from her own guilt. I called her name, but she didn't look back. Instead, I saw her head toward the woods, her figure swallowed by the trees. My stomach dropped, but I told myself she was just grieving, maybe overwhelmed. Still, something about the way she moved, quick, secretive, didn't sit right. The next day, I noticed her phone was on the nightstand, screen lit up with a message that made my blood run cold. It was from her sister's fiancé, a guy I'd always thought was decent, but apparently I'd been wrong. The message was simple: "Can't wait to see you tonight, missed you today." His words felt like a punch to the gut. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. My breath hitched as a cold sweat broke out. I knew then that she'd been hiding something. I didn't need more proof: the secret rendezvous, the stolen moments, the way she'd act distant and guilty whenever I asked about her sister. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't unsee what was right in front of me. How could she use my grandfather's death as an excuse to sneak away? That was twisted even for her. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started paying attention. I watched her phone, her movements, the way she brushed past me like I was just background noise. She'd come home late, smell like perfume I didn't recognize. Each time, I felt like I was swallowing a sharp blade. It was clear she was hiding something, but I needed more. Then I found a receipt tucked in her purse, a hotel near her sister's place, booked for that very night. It was the kind of thing that makes your stomach churn. She'd lied again. I clenched my fists and tasted the bitterness of betrayal. The most surprising part, I wasn't even angry at the affair itself. No, I was furious that she'd used the funeral, that grief, as her cover. I sat in my living room that night, the receipt crumpled in my hand, staring at the trembling shadows cast by a single lamp. I felt the cold dread of realization sinking deeper. This wasn't just a fling. It was calculated, planned, a sick game she played behind my back. I could feel my jaw tighten, my palms grow clammy. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead I kept quiet and started plotting. I knew I had to do something. Not just confront her, I wanted to hit her where it hurt. I needed a plan. She thought she was clever, hiding her secret under the guise of grief, but I was done playing nice. This was war. I brushed aside my anger and started sketching out how I'd catch her, then turn her own game against her. That's when I realized I wasn't just going to leave her. No, I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. I'd expose her in a way she couldn't brush off. I'd make her see that betrayal isn't just a blow to the relationship. It's a poison that destroys everything you thought you knew about the person you trusted. And I was going to do it all without a single word of violence, just pure, calculated revenge. She could run, she could hide, but I'd be waiting. And when I finally acted, she'd know exactly how much she'd messed up. That's the part I'm still working out. But trust me, she'll never see it coming. The next morning, I woke up with that heavy, sick feeling in my gut that just wouldn't go away. My mind kept circling back to her, to the lies, the secret meetings behind my back. I needed to think clearly, so I poured myself a coffee and sat on the porch, trying to piece together what to do next. The rain had stopped, leaving the air damp and cool, but I barely noticed. My skin crawled with the memory of her scent that night, the way her voice had sounded when she whispered. Her excuses. I started going through her stuff, small things at first: her purse, her phone, her clothes. I felt like a criminal, but I had to know what she'd been hiding. That's when I found the second piece of the puzzle. Hidden deep in her purse, tucked behind her wallet, was a small, crumpled piece of paper. It was a handwritten note, just a few words, but they were enough to make my stomach turn. "Tonight. Same place as last time. Can't wait to see you." The handwriting was shaky, desperate, almost like she'd written it in a rush. I ran my finger over the ink, cold and sticky from the rain outside. That was it. I had my proof. She'd been planning her secret meetings, probably for weeks. I felt a surge of rage bubble up, but I kept a lid on it. I wasn't going to blow everything just yet. I needed to be smart. I spent the rest of the day gathering evidence, setting up a few cameras around the house and the roads leading to her sister's place. I wanted to catch her in the act, to have undeniable proof. I also started talking to a lawyer just to make sure I knew my rights if I decided to do anything drastic. I was calm outwardly, but inside I was boiling with anger. The betrayal wasn't just acting, it was a punch to the gut, a betrayal of everything I believed about her. As evening crept in, I sat silently in the living room, watching her come home late again, smelling of perfume I didn't recognize. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder, trying to act normal. I could see it in her eyes. She knew she was caught, but she was playing innocent. We sat down for dinner and I couldn't hold back anymore. "So I found your note," I said flatly, watching her face drain of color. "You've been lying to me this whole time, haven't you?" She looked stunned, then angry. "It's not what you think. I was just—" "No," I cut her off. "You were cheating on me with your sister's fiancé, and you used my grandfather's funeral as an excuse to sneak away from all of us. How long has this been going on?" She opened her mouth to lie, but I saw the guilt in her eyes. That's when I knew I had to act fast. I told her I was going to make her pay, not with violence, but with something just as effective. I explained my plan to her, the setup, the cameras, the legal steps I'd take. Her face twisted with panic and she begged, tried to deny, but I just shook my head. "You think you can lie your way out of this? No more secrets, no more hiding. Tomorrow I'm going to expose everything," I said coldly. "And when I do, I want you to remember that I knew all along. You're done." She looked at me with wide eyes, trembling. "Please don't do this. I'll fix it, I swear." That night I went to bed feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and dread. I knew I was about to change the game completely. The plan was set and I was ready to watch her fall. I just had to wait until morning. But in my gut I could feel one thing: this was only the beginning of the end. I kept replaying her face, her lies, the way she snuck out that day. It all felt so surreal, like I was living in someone else's nightmare. The betrayal cut so deep I could almost taste the sharpness of it. Tomorrow everything would come crashing down. There was no turning back now. Morning came faster than I wanted, but I knew I couldn't delay. The plan was in motion and I needed to see it through. I woke up early, barely slept, feeling the weight of my anger and anticipation pressing down on me. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant chirping of birds outside. I brewed a strong coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the laptop I'd set up the night before with the cameras. I had everything ready: the recordings from the cameras, the evidence I'd collected, and my game plan. My palms were slick with sweat, but I kept my face calm. I had to be in control. No matter how furious I was, I couldn't let her see that I was breaking inside. I was about to expose her, and I knew her pride would crumble once she saw it all laid bare. By the time she woke up, I was already seated, staring at her with a cold, hard look. She blinked at me, confused. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I reached for my laptop and turned it toward her. The screen lit up with footage from the cameras I'd hidden around the house and her sister's place. The recordings showed her sneaking out late at night, exchanging messages with that guy, even entering the hotel she'd booked. Her face went pale as she stared at the images, her hands trembling. "So this is what you've been doing," I said quietly but firmly. "You've been lying, sneaking around, using my grandfather's funeral as an excuse. How long has this been going on?" She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for some way out. I saw her swallow hard, then finally whisper, "It's not what it looks like." "Oh, I think it is," I shot back. "It looks like you've been having an affair with her fiancé behind my back. And you lied about everything: your late nights, the perfume, the hotel receipts. You thought you could get away with it because I was grieving. Well, guess what? I'm not stupid. I knew from the moment I found that note." Her face twisted with guilt and defiance. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just confused." "Confused?" I snapped, standing up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "You use grief to hide your betrayal. That's not confusion, that's pure manipulation. I can't believe I ever trusted you." She looked like she wanted to crawl out of her skin. "Please, I'll do anything, just don't ruin everything." No, I said coldly. You already did that, and I have proof. Every message, every sneaky meeting, everything is recorded now. I'm going to show this to your sister, to your family, everyone who needs to see who you really are. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but I wasn't going to back down. You think you're clever? No. What you are is a liar and a cheat. You used my grief to cover your tracks, and now you're going to pay. I pulled out my phone and started dialing a number, my lawyer. I explained I was ready to file for divorce, to show the evidence, and to make sure she'd never deceive me again. She begged, pleaded, tried to spin a story, but I cut her off repeatedly. I had no patience left. You've got 30 minutes to pack your things, I said, voice tight. And don't bother trying to contact me. If you do, I'll make sure everyone knows what you've been up to. As she hurried around gathering her belongings, her face was a mask of shame and desperation. I felt a strange relief, mixed with disgust. The woman I thought I knew had turned into a stranger, one hiding behind lies and theft of trust. When she finally left with a suitcase in her hand, I stood in the doorway watching her drive away. The silence was deafening. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, feeling both empty and victorious. I knew this was just the start. Her betrayal was a wound I'd carry for a long time, but now I had control. I was about to turn the tables, to make sure she paid for her lies. The piece of paper she'd written on last night, I saved it, that and every other scrap of evidence I'd collected. Now I was ready to take the next step. The plan was simple, cruel in its own way, but it would serve justice. I just hoped she'd finally realize what she threw away. Because the woman I married, she was gone, and I'd make sure she understood exactly how much she'd lost. The day after she left, I didn't sleep much. Instead, I pored over everything, the evidence, the messages, the hotel receipts. I wanted to make sure my plan had no holes, that I was fully prepared for what was coming. I knew I couldn't just send her a message or call her out of the blue. That wouldn't do. She might try to deny or manipulate her way out of it again. I needed her to see it all, to understand she'd been caught, and that I had the upper hand. I decided to use her own game against her. The first step was to make her regret ever crossing me. I created a fake social media account, one that looked like a friend from her past. I used it to send her a message, pretending to be someone she'd once trusted. I made it casual at first, asking how she was, hinting that I'd heard rumors about her. She responded almost immediately, nervous, trying to cover her tracks. That's when I hit her with the truth. I sent her a screenshot of the hotel reservation and the messages from her secret meetings. I told her I had proof of everything and that I was going to share it. Her response was a frantic plea, begging me not to do that. I could practically hear her voice trembling through the phone. She asked me to meet, to talk, to explain herself. I knew I couldn't give her an inch. Instead, I planned to lure her into the trap perfectly. I told her I'd be waiting in a public place, an area where I could keep my distance but still make her see she was caught. I made her believe I was open to reconciliation, just to get her to come clean. That evening, I watched her arrive at the spot I'd chosen. She looked nervous, checking her phone constantly. When she saw me sitting there, I could see her shoulders sag with guilt. I kept my expression stoic, even as my stomach twisted. She sat across from me, avoiding eye contact. "Look," she started, voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I was just confused. I didn't want to hurt you, I swear." "Really?" I said calmly, pulling out the screenshots. "Because it looks like you were planning this for weeks. You were sneaking out, hiding messages, booking hotels. How do you expect me to believe your pathetic excuse?" She looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I was weak. I messed up. I thought maybe I could fix it, but I see now I was wrong. I didn't want to lose everything." I leaned back, feeling a mix of anger and satisfaction. "You lost everything when you decided to betray me. I've done nothing but try to hold this marriage together, and you threw it all away. I hope you're happy with your choice." Her voice broke. "Please, don't do anything crazy. I'll leave, I promise. Just don't ruin my life." I shook my head slowly. "Too late for that. You should have thought about the consequences before you crossed the line. I'm not the kind of man who lets betrayal slide. You want to leave? Fine. But I'll make sure everyone knows what you did, your family, your friends. They'll see the real you." She looked like she wanted to crawl into a hole. I could see the shame in her eyes, but I also saw one thing, her stubborn streak. She thought she could get away with it, that I'd never find out. Well, she was wrong, and I was just getting started. I told her I'd send the evidence to her sister, her family, everyone who needed to see the truth. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. I already had the hook in her, and I was going to reel her in slowly. As she left that night, her head bowed, I knew I'd set the stage for what was to come. My revenge wasn't just about ending this marriage. It was about making her realize that her lies had consequences. I'd strip away her facade, leave her exposed, and make sure she remembered exactly who she'd betrayed. It felt cold, maybe even a little cruel, but sometimes you need to hit back hard. And I was doing it all with facts, evidence, and a steady hand. It was time she learned that betrayal isn't just a mistake, it's a poison, and I was about to make sure she tasted every drop. The days that followed were a blur of planning and waiting. I kept everything quiet. No one but me knew what I was up to. I came home from work, kept the house silent, and double-checked every piece of evidence I'd collected. That's when I realized I had enough to make her regret ever stepping out of line. I wasn't just going to confront her again. I was going to make her pay in a way she'd never forget. I reached out to a private investigator. I wanted someone I could trust to get the last pieces of the puzzle, photos, maybe even videos, proof that couldn't be denied. I'd set up a few cameras near her sister's house, close enough to catch everything but discreet enough to avoid suspicion. I didn't want her to suspect a thing before the final blow. The investigator called me back the next day. "Got some good footage," he said, voice low. "She's been meeting him at the same spot every night for the past week. Shows her sneaking in and out, even late-night calls. Can I send over the files?" "Absolutely," I said, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and cold anticipation. It was real now. Everything was documented, undeniable. She thought she'd hidden everything, but I had her dead to rights. Now, I just needed to decide what to do with all of it. I knew I wouldn't just send her a bunch of photos and call it a day. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal, to see herself exposed for what she was. So I made a plan. I'd leak the evidence gradually, one piece at a time, to her family, her friends, anyone who might need to see what she'd done. The moment came when I gathered the last batch of proof. I sat in my office, staring at the dozens of messages and photos. I felt nothing, just cold clarity. This was how I'd end it. I composed a message to her sister, attaching the evidence, and told her everything. No sugarcoating, no apologies, just pure truth. A few hours later, her phone lit up with notifications. I watched her face when she saw them. Her eyes widened, her breathing shallow. She knew exactly what I'd done. She looked at me, trying to speak, but her voice cracked before any words could come out. "I warned you," I said, standing up. "This is just the beginning. You can try to deny it, hide, manipulate, but the truth is out there. Your family deserves to know who you really are." She sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't do this. I didn't mean for everything to blow up like this. I was just weak." I took a deep breath, feeling the last bits of my patience slipping away. "Weak doesn't cut it anymore. You betrayed everything I stood for, everything I believed in, and now I don't see any way back for us. If you want to walk away, do it. But know this, everyone will see you as you are now, not the person I loved, the person you've become." I handed her a set of keys, my final act of letting go. "Pack your things, you're leaving today. Do come back. I don't want to hear your apologies. You made your choice, and now I'll make sure everyone else knows it too." She looked at me with hollow eyes, clutching the keys like a lifeline. I could see her world collapsing piece by piece. The betrayal was out in the open now, impossible to hide. And I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. All the lying, all the deceit, it had reached its breaking point. As she left, I closed the door behind her, my heart pounding. I knew this moment would stay with me forever, but I also knew I'd finally regained some control. She'd betrayed me, yes, but I'd always be the one who finished it. I was done waiting for her to realize what she'd lost. Now, I was just left with the aftermath and a lesson. Never trust someone who uses grief as an excuse to hide their true nature. The house finally felt like my own again, quiet but heavy with the weight of what had transpired. I stood in the doorway of what used to be our living room and looked around at the empty space she once filled with her presence. The silence was deafening but strangely peaceful. No more whispers of lies, no more sneaking around, no more pretending everything was fine when it was. After she left, I took a long, deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs. It was like finally exhaling after holding my breath for too long. I knew I'd missed the familiarity of her presence, the way she used to make coffee in the mornings, the sound of her footsteps, the way her perfume lingered even after she'd gone. But I also knew I'd never trust her again, not after what I'd uncovered, not after the pain of betrayal. I gathered all the evidence, the photos, the messages, the hotel receipts, and handed everything over to my lawyer. We filed for divorce that same day. I didn't want to drag it out, didn't want to make her suffer more than she already had. I just wanted to close that chapter and move on. The court process was quick, and the judge's gavel felt like a final blow to the chaos she'd created. In the quiet aftermath, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. Part of me felt broken, betrayed by someone I'd loved and trusted for so long, but another part felt strangely liberated. I had taken back control, finally exposed her deception, and walked away with my dignity intact. I didn't need her approval anymore. I'd learned a harsh lesson. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. With her gone, I started rebuilding. I threw myself into work, into friends, into small routines that reminded me I was still here, still standing. Whenever I felt the sting of loneliness, I reminded myself of the truth I uncovered. I deserved better than a wife who used grief as a cover for her lies. I deserved honesty, loyalty, and respect, and I wasn't going to settle for less anymore. Looking back, I realized how much I'd let her manipulate my trust, how blind I'd been to the red flags. But I also understood that sometimes betrayal is the only thing that can wake you up. It forces you to see people for who they really are. I don't regret the revenge I planned. I don't regret exposing her. It was the only way I could reclaim my life and restore my sense of self. Now I know that pain is part of healing, and betrayal, no matter how painful, can lead to clarity. I keep the scars, but I wear them proudly, proof that I survived, that I fought back, that I took control when everything felt like it was falling apart. And so I close this chapter with a simple truth. Never let someone's lies define you. Trust is precious, but it's also a choice. When that choice is broken, you have every right to walk away, to fight for yourself, and to start over. Because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for your happiness is you.